So last night I got to see Strange World by Disney, a new Disney animated movie that came out, and I have some thoughts about it. Stay tuned. Hi guys, it's me. I just want to make a quick movie review video about a movie I hadn't expected to watch, actually. Strange World by Disney Animation Studios. It got released in movie theaters about a month ago, but it's really flown under the radar. I haven't seen a lot of promotion for it. Normally when a Disney movie comes out, there's big fanfare, but this one kind of, the most promotion I've heard about it has been from people complaining about it, and that's really why I was even aware that this movie existed. I get fed an awful lot of bullshit by the YouTube algorithm. When I'm doing the washing up and I'm watching videos and stuff, I'll be happily, watching Calvin Dyson or the Bond Experience or something, and the next video that comes up is some right-wing person complaining bitterly about stuff like this movie. This movie has really upset people. And why has it upset people? Well, there are two reasons. One of which everyone's talking about, one of which they're not talking about. And I find them kind of interesting. The first reason why a lot of people are upset about this movie is they're thinking it's woke, quote unquote, because the main characters are all diverse, quote unquote. So it's about a teenage boy who's gay, he has a crush on another boy, and his parents are an interracial couple, and they have a dog, and the dog's disabled. I mean, it really is like your diversity checklist. You're like, okay, we've got a disabled character, interracial couple, we've got a mixed race, gay, we ticked all the boxes, we've got all the representation there. Let's pat ourselves on the back, on the head, and talk about what a great job we did. And lots of people are upset by this, which I think is bullshit. I really do. I really do think it's bullshit. If you're upset about the fact that the lead character of this movie is a teenage boy who's gay, then basically you're saying that you're upset that people at Disney would have the audacity to make a movie in which they acknowledge that gay teenagers exist. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because the fact that this character is gay comes into the plot in no real significant way. It adds a little bit to the characterization between him and his grandfather, because his grandfather's giving him dating advice, doesn't give a shit that his grandson is gay. Really doesn't come into the story at all. It's the least annoying thing about this character. The teenage boy character is really, really annoying, and I had secretly hoped that he would get eaten by one of these horrible creatures that they encounter, but unfortunately he didn't. But yeah, there's nothing. It is a nothing story. It's a nothing burger, as they say. It's like his parents, interesting, well-written characters. He's an interesting, well-written character. The dog has 3 legs, has, like, access to disabled parking. I don't know. But apart from that, it's a really well-written movie with really good characters, and all of the stuff that people are getting upset about has nothing to do with it. The second thing, though, that this movie does, which some people are getting upset about, but nobody's really talking in a huge way, is the fact that this movie has an agenda. This movie is aggressive propaganda. And I think it's I almost think that so much focus has been paid on the fact that, oh, the main character is the first gay character in a Disney movie. All of the attention's been paid on that, and it as a kind of like way to divert people from the fact that this movie has an aggressive agenda. It's it's a climate change agenda movie. The whole movie, the twist on it is the fact that this advanced society who's trying to solve this energy crisis they have end up having to go back to the Stone Age and living by candlelight to save the planet. And that's really the crux of the plot. And it's really well written. I'm not gonna lie. The way they get to this point is quite satisfying in terms of storytelling. But this movie grabs you by the throat and punches you in the face repeatedly with this agenda. It's like, climate change bad, energy bad. So it's a bit too down your throat. I have no problem with movies that are propaganda. In some ways, all movies are propaganda. You don't create a movie unless you have an agenda behind it. And some great movies have been made that are like out and out blatant propaganda. I think of 1940s Henry V by Laurence Olivier. That was funded by the government, and it was a movie made to keep the British end up when Britain was the only nation standing against fascism. And that movie exists as like a wonderful time capsule and a wonderful item of history, but also it was a movie made at the time with an aggressive political agenda. These days, there are lots of movies that get made with agendas. Dances with Wolves was kind of like about honouring Native Americans. And then Avatar was Dances with Wolves in Space, but it was about environmentalism and stuff like that. So movies exist with propaganda. Even Top Gun, that's another one. Top Gun wasn't specifically made as a recruitment tool for the US Navy, but the producers were like, hey, if we make a recruitment tool for the US Navy, they'll let us fly their airplanes. It'd be awesome. And I think when the original Top Gun was released, like, recruitment for the US Navy exploded, and it was kind of a bit like propaganda. The Transformer movies as well, they were made with powerful involvement from the US military, and it kind of has an agenda. And I think that the directors weren't necessarily pursuing an agenda, but I think the people who made that movie were like, if we want to get this movie done and we want to have this huge budget, and we want to have access to all of these cool tools, we'll have to go along with the message that the military want us to push. And that's fine. I don't really have a problem with movies that are propaganda, but I will admit this Strange World in particular was aggressive about it, grabbed you by the throat, punched you in the face with this anti-climate change message. And it ended up making me, I enjoyed the movie, but it ended up, to me, making the movie kind of a bit absurd to watch. It was like too in your face, too down your throat with it. And I ended up watching it and kind of dissecting it and seeing more and more things as he peeled away the layers. It's like, yeah, the teenage boy, I guess, is the main character, but really the main character is this dad figure. And once you watch it, you realize that he's a bit of a Mary Sue, I think, for the writer of this movie. So it was written and co-directed by Queen Nugent. I can't pronounce his last name, but if you actually look at him, and then if you read any of the essays he's written a great essay about how his parents are Vietnam immigrants, and when he was growing up, his older siblings had wonderful six-figure careers, and he went into the theatre, and his parents didn't quite know what he's doing about that. And you can see all of the issues that he had with his family trying to force him down one particular path, but him wanting to pursue his own path was a message that was baked into the plotline of the story, which I thought worked really well. However, it was just interesting to see it, because at the end of the movie, you kind of do, everyone's always criticizing female characters for being Mary Sue's, but the main character here wasn't Mary Sue, and he kind of has like this savior complex. At the end of the movie, you're looking at this main character and you're like, oh my god, he's one of these TV hipsters with a little douchey beard, and he saves everyone because he's so sensitive and understanding. It's like, it just gets absurd, and just how cynical you can be about it. And I don't know, it was an absurd movie in that way, but I enjoyed it, and I thought it was well written, and I kind of enjoyed going on the ride, even though I will admit it left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth once the movie had ended, because I was like, they could have just dialed it back a bit. I feel like I watched like a public service announcement rather than an action adventure movie. And I don't know, maybe that's why they ended up not publicizing this movie as much as I would have thought it would have been publicized for a Disney movie. Maybe this is why the movie wasn't successful. I think it's lost $150 million at the box office, which is, it's a disaster for Disney. But I don't think it necessarily deserves to be out. It's not a bad movie in any way. It's just aggressively in your face with this message that it puts across. And the message isn't necessarily a bad or incorrect message. I mean, yeah, we do need to do something about climate change, but it's almost like the two prongs of this movie that are so controversial. It's like, hey, we're going to have representation, quote unquote, to pull in people who want to see these characters represented on screen for the first time, which I think is great. Representation is important. I think it's wonderful that you have a teenage boy as the main character, but no one gives a shit about the fact that he's gay. And the dog's got 3 legs, and that doesn't really come into it in any way. And it's an interracial couple behind it. Nobody gives a shit. Those things offer people who aren't often represented in movies the chance to see themselves on the silver screen, and I think that's great. But they bring in these people and then feed them afterwards as a secondary thing, this aggressive message about, hey, we need to go back to the Stone Age to save the planet. And I think it's almost a bit disingenuous. Like, I would have preferred one or the other. I'd have preferred a good action adventure movie with a diverse cast, and they could have written it with really satisfying conclusion to it. The dad character turned evil and tried to steal the airship so he could pursue his Don Quixote like quest to get on the other side of the mountains. That would have been a really satisfying, if predictable, movie. Instead, they took a different approach, which would have worked great if they hadn't kind of like catfished us in the beginning part. I feel there's something kind of a bit too cynical about this movie, that it's pushing things a bit too much and a bit too hard. And I think that's why at the end of it, I enjoyed it, but it's not a movie I'm going to watch endlessly again, because I can't help but look at it with just like a bit of a cynical eye to it. I wish you could separate like the identity politics and giving unrepresented people a chance to be represented from another issue like climate change. If you could like separate the two and make individual movies about each, that'd be great. When you push them together, I think it's just too much for people to swallow all at once, and ultimately that hurts the whole movie. And it's a movie that deserves not to be hurt. I honestly think the movie was really well written. It was really well animated. Their characters were good. It was exciting. It was cool. It had a really satisfying, twisty ending. I don't know. There's just so much to unpack with it. But that's my thought on it, and I'm not going to rabbit on any longer about this. But if you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And if you've got any thoughts about, how to have representation in movies, how to push agendas in movies, if you have any thoughts about that, let me know in the comments down below as well, because I'd be kind of interested to know what you thought about this and what you think about, agendas in movies, because all movies end up having an agenda, just normally not as aggressive as this one did. So let me know, and I'll be back with some more inane ramblings very soon. Until then, ciao. I'm Roland Hume. I've sold 67,000 copies of my books. If you want to find out how I did it, I've got a link right here you can click. And otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more videos coming soon. Thank you.